All right, let's call this the Athletic Philosopher Podcast, episode 25. I am your host, the tribal professor, the trail running Moses, the person who gets it out of Plato's pain cave on the trails, former sport history, philosophy, sociology professor, current life coach, mentor, fitness coach, endurance training coach, guru, none of the above, certainly all of the above, most of the time somewhere in between. I'm really pumped to be talking to everybody today. There is nothing on my mind when it comes to the specific target of this podcast other than improvisation, creativity, passion, the heart, joy, and sharing the truth of my experiences the past week and a bit, flowing out of the epic team ultra that tribal training took down last Saturday at Elephant Mountain, 50-mile trail race in Cave Creek, Arizona. And when I say I don't have anything planned, it's a bit of a lie. I have a title in mind for this episode, and I have notes. And the note is literally just me looking at this incredible race finish photo with myself, the other 12 athletes who took on the course, 2 of which had to graciously bow out before they hit the finish line, 10 others who were able to get it done, 1 pacer, and just a family, dude. That's what I'm looking at right now. So maybe what I'll do is I'll start with the title, and then we'll spin around that for a little while here. And the title of this podcast is going to be When You Play from Your Heart, It's Impossible to Lose. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you're going to see the biggest smile on my face this entire podcast, because what I'm sharing with you right now is about as vulnerable and open when it comes to pouring inside and peering inside, pardon me, looking into the heart and pouring out what's there. Yeah, that's what we're doing here, team. A big theme that we are all looking to capitalize on after coming out of this race is doubling down on the heart, doubling down on faith and passion and belief in ourselves, in our journeys, in our destinies, in our ability to actualize, manifest, and realize them, not for selfish accolades, but to effectively pour out the truth and the lessons and the achievements directly into the hearts of other people. Now, when you play with your heart, it's impossible to lose. What does that mean? This is a tagline that I've been developing for a little bit of time now. I've been posting it a little bit on social media. I've been using it in my coaching calls, and I certainly used it as a theme, preparing the team to have the proper mindset going out to take on a 50-mile trail run in the desert. And it's a little bit of a play on the subjective versus objective that we see in sport. And it's a little bit of an ode to this idea of a moral victory, right? Like when we play sports, there's an objective winner and loser. We can look at the scoreboard. We can look at the stopwatch. Someone is going to be beating somebody else. Someone's a winner and someone's a loser. And in the harsh objective world of sports, right, there is only winning. Like there is only crossing the finish line when it comes to a race. And this was made real in our last Team Ultra experience, trying to take on the Zion 100 Ultra Marathon in April of 2024, where we attempted to get 10 athletes across the finish line by starting together, moving as a pack unit, and then finishing together, which every time I say it out loud becomes even more insane and absurd of a challenge. The more you do these ultras, the more you recognize like how crazy of a thought that is, because it's a crazy thought for one person to try to do it, to capitalize on the good feelings when they're good, to capitalize on the good running terrain when it's good, to capitalize on the cool of the day as opposed to the heat of the day. And there are so many variables like in the air, literally and figuratively, talking about this desert ultra that we ran, and people kicking up dust and inhaling that and breathing that stuff in all day. It literally is in the air. That it's really a momentous achievement for any person to cross a finish line at these ultras, whether you're running and going for first, or you're power hiking and just hoping to beat the final cutoff. It doesn't really matter what you're doing. It's an amazing achievement. And to try to sync up the bodies, minds, and spirits of 10 different individuals to all do the same thing in this harsh, rugged environment where nature just is not handing you anything. There's no compromises out there. Like, it's just all harsh truth. We learned the hard way. We went 3 for 10. One of our athletes didn't even get to go to the starting line. He had to pull out the night before the race because he got sick. So we were only able to go 3 for 9. And what I loved about that experience was pulling out the subjective victories, right? Finding the moral wins, right? Recognizing that we can have these momentous breakthroughs and these moments of affirmation and transcendence for ourselves and our identities that don't necessarily need to be tied up to the finish line. But at the end of the day in sports, there is the finish line, and we didn't cross it. Not enough of us crossed it for it to feel like a success. There was a little bit of remorse, a little bit of regret, a little bit of feeling like we had let each other down, a little bit of feeling like some of us might have quit. It's not a great feeling at the end of the race, but that's the truth, right? And the power of the heart is in giving us the strength and the the strength and the wisdom to confront the truth and to not necessarily be paralyzed by the fear or the terror that accompanies us when we look at the truth, but to resolve ourselves with the strength of love to move through the adversity and to utilize the truth in moving us forward and moving us towards a higher plane and a higher version of ourselves. It's kind of a little bit of the self-development journey we're all on. And this idea then of when you play with the heart, it's impossible to lose is just I believe, a very truthful and honest extension of that idea of a moral victory, right? If I go into any endeavor in life, when I look at any challenge, whether that be an ultra marathon, whether I look at that as going into the gym for the first time after being away for 5 or 6 years, whether it's moving countries, whether it's moving from country life to suburban life, any of the challenges that have been sort of ever present in my life in the past couple months, but also, right, thinking about your context and your situation, we're always facing these big challenges, interpersonal relationships, professional relationships, getting over temptations, trying to establish new habits. Whatever these challenges are, we set ourselves up objectively, in a sense, to either achieve them or to miss them, to miss the mark. And so often we locate we'll call it the engine, the thing that drives us towards these challenges. Like, we put that engine in the brain. We'll put that engine in the mind because it's our analytical powerhouse. It's the one that observes. It's the one that notices. It's the one that can analyze. It can synthesize, right? It can create a plan out of the seeming chaos of the world that gives us assuredness, comfort, and some confidence that we know what we're doing, right? That we're able to move towards that goal and achieve it. But the mind is not the place to start that journey, because the mind is a shortcut machine. Like, biologically speaking, that's what the mind does. The mind filters. The mind takes the chaos of the world and gives us a shortcut so that we can maneuver through it effectively, right? I've talked about the field of vision before on this podcast. I've talked about how we don't see all of the light that's in the world in terms of the electromagnetic spectrum. Why is that? Our brain is helping us. It's creating a shortcut out of our reality so that we can maneuver effectively, safely, and consistently and predictably through the world. But whenever I set out a challenge for myself and I put it in the brain, well, I'm kind of putting the end before the means, right? What I'm doing is determining the outcome before I go on the journey. And so many times in life, the value of the exercise is not in the outcome of the exercise, but is in the exercise itself. Let's think about physical training. What's the goal of physical training? Is it to look down at the outcome of every single training session and think, I nailed that for 100% and I got better? Every single training session blocks onto each other and there's this never-ending wave of progression, this linear progression upwards in terms of getting stronger or getting faster? No, not even close. The point of training is to do the training. It's to have a habit. It's to be accountable to yourself, to give yourself space to move your body, to stay fit mentally and physically, but also to recognize that progress is not this linear thing. Some training sessions are amazing. Some training sessions are just horrible. Like, you don't want to do them and your body just fails in terms of rising to some sort of a level of performance. It just happens, right? Some days are just not your day. So the exercise of training consistently is far more important than any one particular training session. It's the journey that matters. It is the exercise of doing that matters, not the outcome of the doing. And when you are confronted with the challenge, any challenge, and let's sort of zone in a little bit more. Let's say a big challenge, like a real big challenge, something like a 50-mile trail race in the desert with 12 other homies. Big time challenge. Personally, when I'm walking into this race, it's the hardest thing I'm ever going to have to do. That's my mindset. This is going to be the hardest race. I don't care that I've run further before. I don't care if I've run in a more difficult terrain or more hostile environments. I don't care about that. The hardest thing that I'm going to be doing is that next challenge, not because it is objectively bigger, but because it's the one that's right in front of me. It's the one I can see. It's the one I'm aimed directly towards. But if I start with my mind when I go to that challenge, I'm looking for the shortcuts. I'm looking for the easy way out. I'm telling myself 50 miles is half of 100. That's easy. That's like half as difficult. Oh, the elevation? We don't have any 1,500 foot descends down like gnarly mesas or going up like a 2,000 foot winding road that sucks your soul from you, as we had to experience in Zion in April of 2024. We had people on the team who expressed those kinds of hesitations. It's like, well, we went to Zion, we tried 100. Why are we checking down to a 50 at a lesser race? And some of the people on the team were taking it for granted. They're like, we're just going to be able to do this. And it's just not like that. Like, these are heavyweight fights. Like, you're getting into the ring with either the champ or like the number one contender, and to expect that you ain't going to get hit, like, that's just naivete. Like, I expected to get hit multiple times in the face, in the gut, maybe even a few times below the belt. And that's kind of the fun of these events, like, how are you going to respond? And the brain's not equipped for that. The brain is not equipped for pivoting. The brain is not equipped for improvisation. The brain is not equipped, right, to deviate from the well-structured plan that is rationally constructed to allow us to move with the minimum amount of discomfort and struggle through the challenge. The brain craves the shortcut. The brain wants the shortcut. It engineers the shortcut. Even if you think it's a hard thing, the brain is about to trick you into thinking that the easy thing is really the hard thing because it wants the easy thing. It always wants the easy thing. Great example. Shout out to my bro, Cam Pearson, the person who I spent the most amount of time on the trails with, not because he just wanted to talk to me. It's because he was the one at the back struggling the most all day, hurting, definitely in a spot he did not want to be, grinding. for the vast majority of the race, like against dehydration, against low spirits, and against a lack of calories. That's a bad combination out on the desert trails, team. It's a very bad combination. And that's objectively hard. You tell somebody, hey, you're going to go physically grind for 40 some odd miles in the desert. You're going to feel like crap. You're going to feel like you have no energy, that your stomach is about to leap through your nose, right? And that your feet are going to start stumbling and all the muscles of your body are going to start aching harder and harder. And the sun is going to be beating down on you. And you're going to be feeling like you're cooking and you can't get any relief. And you feel like you're letting everybody down and you're letting yourself down. And it's despair, it's despondency, it's hopelessness. And to figure out the strength of character, of spirit, and of body and mind to be able to keep going is incredibly impressive. But that's not the hard thing. That's actually the easy thing. What's the hard thing for Cam? And I'm going to share because he's just a legend. And this is the thing that we respect more than anything, is when we notice what the really hard thing is, as opposed to like the easy thing that everybody else thinks is hard. And I'm not suggesting that running the 50-mile trail run is easy, not at all. And I'm not saying what Cam did was easy, and you do not want to be in that position, because it's not easy to do what he did. But that's the easy thing compared to looking at the truth of the situation and taking on the full responsibility of what you did or didn't do. Cam has this incredible experience last year of pacing some of the top ultra runners in the world last year in total acts of service in some of the biggest trail ultras in the entire world. So he has touched like the elite world of ultra running, the elite pinnacle, the top of the mountain. And that creates a bit of an expectation in his mind of what his performance is going to be like, what his role on the team is going to be like, what other people are going to be coming to him to do during the race. And none of that materialized, right? None of that materialized. What was in his mind was an illusion. What was out on the race was the truth. And he could have fallen back on the fact that, yeah, I grinded this one out. I was able to find my resolve. I was able to pick up the strategies again that I know work with a little bit of guidance from the coaches. But that's the easy way out. That's the looking like a hero to everybody on the outside, knowing that on the inside, you still haven't really confronted the truth, the really hard part. And the really hard part is being vulnerable and open and sharing the fact that Cam didn't prepare well enough. It was as simple as that. He didn't do the things he needed to do properly to prepare his body to go out and run 50 miles in the week, but also the weeks leading up to the event. Not running enough, not training enough, not properly hydrating and fueling up a couple days before the race, which is crucial. And then to open up and share that with the team a few days after the race, we have a team chat. And again, all this stuff is an open book, because what's really hard is opening up the heart, right? And laying bare the truth of what you find. And when Cam looks down inside of his heart and then has to come to grips with that and then share it with everybody, it's a million times harder to do that than to run 50 miles. And of course, we crossed the finish line. We were in the backpack with Cam, and he was such a strong leader in those final 8 miles. And there was a point, I think maybe 12 miles or so out from the finish of the race. It was me and Coach Ryan and Cam at the back, and we're pushing him along, and we're trying to motivate and inspire him. And shout out to Ryan for identifying this moment and for breathing life and confidence into me as a coach. I was able to find the right words at one of the moments where it was, it's Cam, don't show me your fight. Don't show me your determination. Don't show me your ruggedness. Don't show me your rawness, like your toughness. Show me what's in your heart, Cam. Show me the truth of what's in your heart. Not just lit the fire, dude, because that guy's heart is the truth. And that's what gave him the strength to do the really hard thing, which is admit his own shortcomings and recognize that it's his process that has to change if he wants to have better races going forward. And something like that revelation, well, shoot, that's only possible if you play from your heart. When you play from your heart, it's impossible to lose. Cam finishes the race, doesn't feel accomplished. Only when he exposes and bears himself open to the truth that's in his heart does he feel like a winner. Because he is a winner when he does that. And let's contrast Cam to somebody else. My guy Chris. I love looking at this photo and doing this podcast. This is awesome, team. Here's a guy that told me when I started coaching him one-on-one in September 2023, 18 months ago. What a journey we've been on, bro. Love you so much. It's a guy who told me, I hate running. I've always hated it and been bad at it. I can never do it. And if you make me run up a hill, I'll punch you. Yeah, not quite like that, but basically like, don't ever make me run up a hill. Like I'm cool to try the exercise thing, but it's not running. It's not trail running, and it's certainly not running up hills like I see you doing all the time. It's all good. Not everybody has to find their way through exercise, through the thing that I like to do. That's obvious. But something did click into him, and he did start to run, and he started to enjoy it a little bit. And then at the end of our first kind of like 3-month coaching program, I took him on a trail run. I made him climb 1,100 feet in 10 kilometers. And you know what he did? On his way home, he drove to another trail that was right near his house. He says, I'm running here next week. You have hooked me on this thing. Trail running is powerful. It makes you feel like a superhero. Everybody should go try it. So Chris is on this journey, right, to become an endurance athlete. He kind of gets the itch. Eventually, like, he proves to me through his own actions, right? I'm still in a coaching relationship with him, that he belongs on the team. He needs the community. He would really benefit from the structured training that Ryan, the head coach of the team, can provide him, that I really can't because I'm not really a fitness trainer. And his first team race is the Backyard Ultra that I've talked a whole bunch about. The Prairie on Fire, September 2024. And his aim is 50 kilometers. Monster achievement. He nails it. Super duper satisfied. And then he gets the itch to come and join us. Once he finds out that we're not running a 100-mile race as a team in 2025, but we're running a 50-mile race, he's in. He's like, 100 is beyond my comprehension and beyond my ability. But 50, yeah, I could dance with 50. I'd love to give that one a shot. And Chris shows up and he plays with his heart. What does that look like? It looks like him running. It looks like him running to the top of his ability all day long. Not a lot of guys on the team have the luxury of access to really rugged, technical trails like Chris does and like I did living back in Ontario. Chris and I are both rural Canadians. He lovingly refers to himself as a hick. I'll just call him a hoser. But we live about an hour apart, so we have access to some incredible trails, some incredible training conditions, and especially in the winter, when you just start running on the ice and the snow in these really rugged, rocky places, your legs gain a lot of strength and a lot of confidence in themselves. And it's hard to see that when you're trudging through the snow and you feel like none of your steps matter and my pace is super slow and I'm not breathing that hard. And Garmin thinks I'm just slacking off and telling me that I'm losing fitness. Yeah, you start to believe that kind of thing. But this guy's been so consistent and he's been training so hard. And when he got out on those desert trails, it was like, finally, I can show everybody what my feet can do. And he was restless. You know, there's portions on the trail where you're in a line and the person who's leading is going at a kind of a pace that's slower than what you want. This is one of the difficulties of running as a pack. And then you get cramped. And then you get stuck into this uncomfortable position, this uncomfortable pace. And I remember we were walking at the back around sort of like mile 13, mile 14. And he's like, I can't be walking. And I said, well, don't. Go past these guys and run. Like, nothing is keeping you in the back, guy. Like, go up front, run, show them what you can do. And from that point on, that's all he was doing. He was running. He had light feet. He had strong, capable, nimble feet. Coach Ryan calls it the Chris Boy Shuffle, right? You got your own running steps named after you, dude. Hero. That's what Coach saw. That's what I saw. I saw that on our escarpment runs in the winter. I knew you were going to ball out. But there's also the objective truth that Chris didn't cross the 50-mile finish line. Like, he bowed out at the 36.5 aid station after a grueling 14-mile stretch without any aid stations or water relief in between, on the hottest part of the day in the most rugged terrain of the entire course. And so objectively, right, unlike Cam's story, Chris doesn't cross the finish line, right? There's not that easy out for him to take with his performance in terms of what's the hard thing, right? But he's played with his heart all day. So it's impossible to lose, right? It's impossible to lose. And he's out at the aid station. He's smiling. He's hobbling around on his busted up biking pole, like running poles that just didn't seem to work for you all day. No complaints. You just keep grinding and just keep running all day. Because he knows that he left everything out on the course. He left it all out there. And he was so proud and satisfied at the fact that he had run further than he had ever done in an environment that was harsher and more challenging than he had ever imagined he could do. And he did it in a way that proved to other people that he's not just out there to grind it out at all costs, but he's there to perform at a high level, at an elite level. And that's the standard that he demands. And if he can't finish using that standard, well, so be it. That's just not where he's at as a runner. He's got the perspective that he's less than 2 years into this thing we call running. And so even though he doesn't cross the finish line, there's not a speck of remorse. There's not a speck of regret. There aren't those lingering questions that we all felt from Zion last year. He played with his heart. It was impossible to lose. I think I'll ramble on for way too long if I don't start to try to land this airplane here. And the way I'm going to land it is by talking about our favorite midwit meme that we came up with to sort of highlight the difference between the Zion experience and this last experience at Elephant Mountain, and why the heart is so important, and why when we play with our hearts, it's just impossible to lose. And this is a bit of hindsight now on the Zion experience, right? Like, history gives us the benefit of hindsight, that 2020 clarity as to what happened, what we did wrong, what we could have improved upon. So none of this is an indictment on anything that we did at Zion to lead up to it, during it, or after it. Like, that is one of the nasty elements of history, right? Is you mistake hindsight for foresight. Just because we know what's happened doesn't mean we were able to then predict the future. And it's a real disservice to judge the actors of the past with the knowledge that you have from the future. How dare you? How dare you? So none of this is an indictment. None of this is, we really messed it up at Zion. No, Zion was incredible. Zion was like Christopher Columbus sailing across the Atlantic Ocean into totally uncharted waters. Okay? It was a grand adventure. It was a bold challenge. And we had never done anything like that before. So it was clear that we were likely going to be off course one time or another. We might think we're landing in India. Turns out we land in Hispaniola. Basically, the Dominican Republic and Haiti, not India. Which is fine. The exercise, like the value of the exercise isn't the outcome of the exercise. It's the exercise itself. So I'm not this is in no way an indictment of Zion, but it's like if we can't learn from our experiences, well, then we're prisoners of the past as well. Like we're prisoners of that experience. And one of the funny things that emerged at the house when we're trying to figure out like what's different this year than about Zion, right? Like how are we going to improve upon what we did last year? And the midwit meme, if people don't know what the midwit meme is, it's like that bell curve meme where we got kind of like the yokel, the dummy on one side who's like the low IQ person who's just like an idiot. He's a dullard. On the other side, we've got the super genius. We got like the monk mode guy who's just like, whatever. It's like IQ 60 and IQ 145. And in the middle is the midwit. The midwit is someone who's smart enough to know they're smart, but not smart enough to know that they're not wise. Like that nice smooth average, smooth brain average, like 105, 110 in the middle. And the midwit meme is always funny because it's like the person in the middle is overanalyzing the situation, and the two people on the opposite ends, whether they're like super duper smart or super duper dumb, they have the exact same answer. Which is just it's a perfect meme because it's true, and it's true in so many ways. But the midwit meme for us was kind of like Zion was the guy in the middle. It was no training plans, drop bag strategies, pacing protocols. Like we spent all our group calls talking about food. What's the food we're going to be eating? How much per hour? This, that. I'm watching a little bit from afar. I don't quite have the authority on the team. And my thought is, all right, everybody's insecure about gut issues and fuel. So we're just spending way too much time talking about it as kind of like a psychological crutch, which is fine. We all need some sort of a comfort and a safety when we're going across the Atlantic Ocean. But it was the wrong play. It was the wrong strategy. I just wrote a big Substack about this. It kind of like we tried to solve the big challenge with our minds, right? We tried to locate the vehicle inside our minds, and it led us to thinking about the wrong things that we needed. We felt more like a crack group of hotshot mercenaries who were brought in to like take on a job and execute it and get rid and knock it down and move right to the next one. We needed to be more of a team. We needed to be more of a family. We needed our hearts sewn together, not our minds brought into some sort of a mastermind. And that's one of the main reasons why we ultimately didn't cross enough guys across the finish line, guys and girls. So the midwit meme is like, no! All the things of the mind. And the super genius and the super dullard, it's like run, fuel, laugh. It's something like that, right? Like that's what you need in the ultra. You need to eat, you need to drink, you need to run, you need to stay light in your spirit. And one of the things that Ryan and I were conscious about was we have to bond these guys in a sense of shared struggle that's going to be more representative of what we're going to face in the ultra together. And now we have more experience running ultras. Ryan went out and did a 100-mile race on his own just to cross the finish line so that he could gain that knowledge and put into practice some of the deep lessons that we had learned and exposed through the whole Zion experience. Like we were very open afterwards. We have like 11 podcasts, guys. Like we have got a 5-hour race recap with Ryan and I. We have individual interviews with all the athletes. We got a 4-hour masterclass from Louis, our sage, telling us about Oh, I knew we were in trouble. I knew this wasn't going to work. Because we didn't spend any time on mindset. We didn't spend any time on emboldening our spirits. We didn't spend any time activating our hearts. We played with our minds. And in the end, we lost a little bit. We didn't play with our hearts. We reflected with our hearts. And that's what allowed us to gain the deep wisdom. But I think if you ask the people who are at Zion, they'll agree with me. We played with our minds. We didn't play with our hearts. Therefore, it was possible for us to lose. And I'm not saying we did lose, but it was possible. It opened the door. Elephant Mountain was totally different. We tied all of our hearts together and shared struggle, doing things like the Tribal 24 and midnight runs. We had group sessions, group calls on fear, on identity, on momentum, on mindset. Sessions inside the house, at Zion, pacing strategy session, drop bag planning session. Elephant Mountain, open discussion about the theme of freedom and slavery in Exodus so that we can match the lower self when he tries to tempt us into quitting or stopping or complaining or bringing negative energy, and instead rising with our spirits to meet the challenge positively with our hearts. Visualization, writing workshops, group shares on why we do this, when we saw our best selves alive in the training, connecting all of our deep whys together to find the commonality of our individual journeys with our collective expedition out into the desert for self-mastery, self-knowledge, and collective transcendence. At Zion, we played with our mind. At Elephant Mountain, we played with our heart. And those who didn't cross the finish line, they felt like winners because they were winners. And those who crossed the finish line felt like winners because they were winners. Because it didn't matter effectively what the outcome would be, because when you locate the motive power towards your challenge with your heart, there's only truth that comes out of it. And you're strong enough to face that truth, because when you act from the heart, you're activating love. And love is the strongest force in the universe. Fight me on it. I dare you. I'll prove you wrong. Love is the most powerful force in the world. You can think about that spiritually. You can think about that physically. You can think about that psychologically. It doesn't matter to me. It's true in all domains. Therefore, when we activate the strongest part of us, we're not afraid of whatever truth comes from the outcome. And whatever truth we hoped to find, well, that's kind of like an illusion, because we always find something different. We always face adversity in a way we never expected. We're always presented with challenges and struggles and hurdles along the way. Love's what allows us to jump over them, or if we stumble and trip, to go back to the starting line and try again with new knowledge about how we need to do better. And how can you ever lose if that's your position? How can you ever lose when you end up learning something deeply true about yourself that becomes valuable in moving you to the next part of where you want to be as an individual? And if sports are these activities of moral lesson, if sport is a moral laboratory, an experiment, a dream state, where we can play with our authentic selves with a little bit of risk, but not all of the risk, so that we can touch the divine, touch the beyond, touch the eternal, to know something about the subjective, the particular, the me, the self. You can't prove at all to me that there's a losing situation there. And that's why, team, when we play from the heart, it's impossible to lose. Peace and love. I'll talk to you guys in the next one.